Okay, guys, I just wanted to say hello. How is everybody? Thank you for coming to a live show that's a little bit late. My computer was misbehaving. Hello, Dean. Hello, Iowa. Hello, Miss Lisa. Hello, Dark Side. But before I share Brendan's interview, and I think it's a fun one, I think you'll enjoy it. I just wanted to do a coming attractions for things that are coming in the future.
You're watching lying lawyers who lie. Another lying lawyer's been caught in a lie. It's second nature, like putting on a tie. Telling untruths, it's what they do. Thanks to him, cop killers are no longer taboo. His lies have magic powers. Groupies parrot his lies for hours. So get ready for this lying lawyer to lie. Starring David Yannetti.
Okay, that is it. Without further ado, here is my interview with Brendan. Please enjoy.
Be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, it is my great pleasure to be once again with John O'Keefe's friend, Brendan Kane. Welcome, Brendan.
Hi, Roberta. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for doing this. So last time we talked, the Karen Reed supporters, they seem to be outraged and said that you didn't even know John O'Keefe. Is that true?
Of course, no. As most of the narrative that comes out of that camp is baseless completely. While I don't really feel a need to defend the relationship, a 40-year friendship, I would say the summary version is clearly we grew up together on the same street. He drove me to high school every day once he got his car. When I went away to school, came and visited me at school. I came home every Christmas break, every summer break. We saw each other all the time. He was in my wedding party. He was the first person at my house when my daughter was born. We just seen him a few weeks before the murder at a hockey game. And we had an annual tradition on Christmas Eve where we would go to Canton for Chinese food and to give the kids gifts. And that tradition ended in December of 21, which is another story in itself.
Yeah. What happened on the Christmas of the last Christmas? What happened there? Why didn't you guys celebrate Christmas Eve together?
So this was deep into COVID. This is like 18 months into COVID. So most people had kind of found the level footing with the virus, but we were set to go over there as we had the past 4 or 5 years. And I got a call from Johnny about a couple, maybe 2 or 3 days before. And he said, his exact words were, "Hey, I got a little problem. There's some concern about COVID, and it's going to be immediate family only." I was like, "Oh, seriously? Okay. All right. Didn't know." And the irony of that story was that at the time Johnny related to me, he said it was actually Paul's wife who had the issue with immediate family only. Had Johnny never been murdered, I never would have found this out. But since it came to light after his killing, it turns out that it was not Paul's wife Erin that had any problem with COVID. She was one of the people that was least concerned about COVID. It was Karen, and we had just been out with them, and the way I justify it is Johnny wanted to kind of protect our view of Karen, and if we said it was Karen that had the issue, maybe our opinion would change a little bit. But the key to that, and the reason why it hits home, is that I can distinctly remember my daughter crying for 10, 15 minutes that we're never gonna be able to go to Johnny's again after he died. We could never go back over there on Christmas Eve. For that year until I figured it out, I was blaming Erin, and it was Karen the whole time. So now in hindsight, you look at with all the other behavior and it's just additional red flags that I missed.
Yeah, she was isolating you, and we'll circle back to it. As maybe why it was you that she didn't want around, when we know that she was at the height of keeping power and control over John. But I always feel a little guilty asking you to do an interview. I mean, this just must be a nightmare. I mean, what is this like, going through something like this?
It's a process. It's definitely a process. So, I still think about him every day, and talk to the family regularly. But losing someone this close at that age, maybe it just takes forever to process it. You try to rationalize, and you try to look at things through the right lens and the right perspective, and you kind of just try to figure out what else can I do here in the moment, to either help myself through it or help people that loved him through it. And that's my personal way of coping. Is there anything I can do to try to help? Mainly because I know for a fact he would have done the exact same thing for me had it been me.
And how is it different than a natural death? And how did you wake up to sort of, it's such an odd story. How did you get told about it, and how did you start to put the pieces together as to how Karen Reed murdered your friend?
Yeah, so at about 10 o'clock in the morning on January 29th, 22, I got a call from another one of our friends who had no detail. He just called me and said, Johnny died. And I said, "What?" And I called Paul immediately to see what happened. And at that point, there was still a lot of confusion. It was very unclear what had happened. We knew there was a blizzard. So that entire day on the 29th, the blizzard fell. So I couldn't get to Canton. Nobody could. I didn't get over there till the next morning on the 30th. So I spent the day thinking he, did most likely, let's take Occam's razor. The real definition of Occam's razor, not Alan Jackson's definition of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation would be he got hit by a plow. It was a horrible snowstorm, second worst snowstorm the area had seen. Even on my drive over there on the 30th, I'm still thinking this, potentially was accidental. And I got over to Johnny's house in Canton and gave Mrs. O'Keefe a big hug. The entire room, it was full of Johnny's family. And it was just universal kind of shock, is the way I describe it. And tears. And Carrie Roberts walked in about 5 minutes after I did. And again, she and I had gone to high school together. So I knew Carrie before. I didn't know any of the McCabe's or the Alberts at that point. I still don't know them that well now, but Carrie walked in and we sat on the couch in the back. And I said, "What happened?" And she started to recount her narrative. And again, I will say what she told me that morning was identical to everything she testified to twice in court. But she's going through the entire story, and then she gets to the point where she says, "So Jen and I are white knuckle driving with Karen in the back seat. She's screaming, she's histrionic, and we get close to Fairview, and Karen starts kicking and punching at her door, and screaming, 'Let me out, let me out.'" And Carrie turned to Jen and said, the verbatim was, "This bitch is crazy." And Jen's like, "I have no idea what she's doing." And so Carrie unlocked the door, and Karen made the beeline out the side of the car onto the lawn. And Carrie said we couldn't see more than 3 or 4 feet in front of us. We had absolutely no idea what was going on. I think it was just chaos and confusion, like nothing made sense. And I said, "Was he? You couldn't see him on the lawn?" She goes, "No, he was." And then when we got over there, he was half covered in snow, and Karen had jumped on top of him. And that's when I looked at Carrie, and that was the click for me. That was the moment for me where I said, "How in God's name did she know where he was? If you were out there, randomly looking for him, retracing his steps, that she knew exactly where his resting place was, under a mound of snow." And so that was from that moment on, I formulated my opinion of what happened.
So what did you know at that time exactly? I mean, how did you think she hit him with her car? Did you think what were you thinking?
So the day before, when I talked to Paul, I think my exact words to him, just thinking about all the possibilities, and I said, this is on the morning of the 29th, and I said to him, "Look, I don't want to start anything here. I'm just curious." I'm like, "Did anybody look at the back of her car?" And Paul said, "You know what? Somebody else just said that before." I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "They're gone." I said, "What do you mean they're gone?" And he goes, "They came back after the hospital. She gathered some of her stuff, and she was gone in like 15 minutes. And then the piece of the story that still really irritates me is that I guess in that 15-minute period, as Paul was relaying the news of Johnny's death to Patrick, Karen was on the couch next to Paul. She's there. She's sitting there as Paul is relaying to this kid that his third guardian of his life is now gone. That piece still really pisses me off.
And did she comfort him? Did she?
Not a word. Not a word from what Paul said. Just sat there.
And she just got her murder vehicle and hightailed it out of there. Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems so obvious that all those screaming and were theatrics that she put on that night, and she acted hysterical. But I still hear from the Free Karen readers, well, Carrie and Jen didn't seem upset. They weren't emotional, but of course they're trying to be helpful. At the time, that's generally what you do in a crisis, is be helpful and not hysterical. But I mean, didn't seem like everything that Karen Reed did that morning was for her and not to get help for John O'Keefe.
Yeah, well, once I saw the videos, and I would actually make a case that Carrie and Jen reacting in a kind of logical, in some people's estimation, calm manner was directly affected by how hysterical Karen was. So you have somebody losing their mind in the most ineffective way. You're just trying to. Remember, it's a blizzard. It's pitch dark. They're both woken out of bed at 5 a.m. So you come back to this again. All the abuse and the harassment that Jen McCabe has taken, Carrie too. That's the thanks they got for answering the phone at 5 a.m. Jen answered a call from Kaylee's phone. People forget that. So you get a phone from your daughter's friend at 5 a.m. and Jen answered that phone like any good human being would. And look what that got her.
Why didn't Karen Reed get the number and call her from her phone? Do you notice that she does everything by proxy? So that it's Jen McCabe calling 911. There was no need to call Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts that morning. And I'd say that she was acting hysterical rather than actually being hysterical. You know, I think that she needed to act hysterical and surprised so that when she found him, it would be when she quote unquote found him, as she led them right to him, she would look surprised or look hysterical, but she knew exactly what she did. I mean, there's so much evidence from the phone calls that she made saying, nobody know. I'm here with your kids. First of all, Kaylee was the only one there. Patrick, she knew Patrick wasn't there. She wasn't with the kids at that right at that point. I may be wrong on that.
No, you're right.
I thought she was in the car at that point. No one knows where you are. She knew where he was, which right where she left him after she clipped him with his car. I mean, all this was like the cover up happened immediately after she hit him.
She put it in motion pretty quick. If people think about it, if she had to call Carrie and Jen, because what else was she going to do? Was she going to go back to the scene with her car and have first responders show up with her car with a broken taillight? No, her car was safely inside Johnny's garage. So she had to, in hindsight, again, the cover up began immediately. She's quickly putting together this plan on the fly, and she needs to distance herself as much as she can. So she needs other actors in her play, and at this point, in my opinion, and that's why she brought in Kaylee's best friend's mom and Patrick's best friend's mom. Kaylee's best friend's mom, she didn't even have her phone number. That's why she had Kaylee call her.
I know, but she could have gotten the number from Kaylee and called her on her phone. Do you see how it's never on her phone? It's never her phone. It's never her phone calling 911. It's never her calling 911. If she had just appeared at the scene with her car, with the smashed to smithereens taillight, and it was just her, there was no one else that she could point the finger to. I think she's been doing this her whole life, mixing in people, and so that she can later point the finger at them. Otherwise, it's just her who's standing there mixing it all up and also creating chaos at the scene. Also not helpful, but everything she did at the scene was help for herself and not for John, you know, and to making sure she got sectioned and she didn't talk to the police. But in interest, you mentioned her return to John's house. Why do you think she returned to she didn't return. She never came from there. She came from Mansfield. Why do you think she went to John's house, snuck in like a burglar? And why did you think she plotted her cover up from his house?
So think about the timing of when that decision was made. It was right after she hit him. So now what are her options? Go back to Mansfield with a damaged car. I mean, did she think that far ahead? Was she that devious that she had to explain away the taillight? To me, the biggest mistake the Reed camp made the entire time was when they took the murder weapon on the 29th back to Dighton. They should have buried that thing in a ditch.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
She thought, and a lot of people were fooled by her ring video backing out of Johnny's garage, where we've proven with video.
Yeah,
And
tell that story one more time. I mean, I know we talked about it last time, but I think it's a good illustration of. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, when she talks about being in so much grief, and I'll play a clip in a second, but she talks about being in so much grief to Gretchen Voss that she was on her parents' couch for days when we know immediately the next day she was with a PI retracing her steps and already coming up with a story. So, I mean, imagine it, killing your boyfriend of 2 years and already, I mean, having the presence of mind to make a video of a fake way that you busted your taillight. That is some really cold psychopathic stuff, right there. Most people with feelings would be so distraught that their boyfriend of 2 years was gone, but it was all about her and getting away with this.
Yeah, that was the immediate plan. She knew she hit him. I don't believe she knew how badly injured he was, but she left him there. That explains the dozens of calls to his phone, just hoping he'd pick up. Then she's getting angrier and angrier because she knows that either he's not answering for one reason or another, one far worse for her. And I think that part of the hysteria that she was able to build up in the back of Carrie's car was still there was a piece that she didn't know. She just didn't know. And when she saw the hump on the grass, then she knew for sure. But there were calls made to her mom or dad's phone. And she had some time there once she got back to Meadows Ave to formulate this plan. She definitely made mistakes, not mistakes big enough to get.
I'm going to have to disagree with you about not knowing how badly. First of all, there's the first admission where she says it's an admission in the negative, so you have to reverse it. And there's a theory in statement analysis. It doesn't mean it's absolute or whatever, but in this case, I think it's right. So when she says he didn't look mortally wounded, clearly he did look mortally wounded, or there was no need to bring it up that she looked at him before she left. And she said, in that interview, he says, was that when you dropped him off? Yes, I looked at him and he didn't look mortally wounded. So clearly he did. And then she was telling everyone he's dead that morning. She knew he was dead before anyone else, something terrible, that his life was taken, from the very early morning hours of the 29th. So I think she did know how badly she hit him.
I see your point. I've always kind of, my interpretation of that statement was that she knew she hit him, but she didn't know how badly he was injured, and maybe he was playing it up. That's the way I took it. It's like, so your take is that she knew he landed and was in deep trouble, which could be true. But for me, it was the way I read it was, I know I clipped him. She said that in many different ways. Like maybe I clipped him, that she clipped his leg, clipped his knee, he spun and landed on the lawn. And she's saying, well, he didn't look dead to me. But so if he wasn't mortally wounded, Karen, what type of wounded was he?
Okay, but she's not calling inside and saying, go check on John. She's immediately calling him and saying, I hate you. So so if she didn't know then that he was, depending on the expert that you listen to, quickly dead or was dying, for some time on the lawn, in desperate need of help. And maybe there was that, I think, 33% chance that if he had gotten help, he could have been saved in some way, in what kind of condition, we don't know. But there was that moment where she could have stopped and gotten out. She knew she hit him. I think we both agree she knew she hit him. And she could have gotten out and gotten help. Instead, she's calling and saying, I hate you, you're a pervert. So the option was, if I didn't finish him off, this is where I'm at with this now. I'm going to drive away from the scene and make sure he doesn't get help. She knows he's in no condition to ring for help. She clearly knows from looking at him. Her decision to drive away was the decision to let him die. How do you see that? You think that's unfair?
No, I just think it's impossible to prove.
Maybe.
The things we do know for a fact is that she never called for help. So
that is fair.
From her own quotes, he wasn't mortally wounded as far as I could see. I had him, maybe I clipped him in the knee. All of her own words. That's what I believe is fact, is that she knew she hit him. That's what I know. Now,
we're in agreement.
I know she didn't call for help. Will we ever actually know whether she knew he was mortally wounded? No.
But also, here's another thing. When she sneaks into John's home, when she invades his home and starts to plot out her plot to cover up plot to get away with this, which worked, by the way, because I think she's been doing this her whole life. She wears her high heels. You hear her high heels going into the house. Now, John had a rule that nobody could wear their shoes in the home. And were you aware of his neatness and his insistence on keeping things neat and orderly?
Very.
Was he always like that?
Always like that. You did not wear your shoes into the O'Keefe residence.
So his parents were like that too, or
I think Mrs. O'Keefe a little bit more. Again, if you kind of look at the family, it's clear that Johnny and Mrs. O'Keefe had a lot in common. And then because Kristen and Mr. O'Keefe had a lot in common, and Paul's kind of like a combination of both of them. But yeah, it was Johnny definitely took those genetics and the fastidiousness carried over into Johnny's adult life. He was a clean guy.
Huh. So she's so here she is wearing her shoes in the home. It's like another middle finger to John, and a sign that when I first heard that in court, my jaw dropped. And it's not everything. It's not the whole reason I believe she's guilty of this crime. It was just such a telling detail in this case, such a telling small detail that, and then when Carrie and Jen insisted they look for John because Karen Reed strangely had lost something she never looked for, which when do you ever lose something you never look for? Only people like Karen Reed are looking for or have lost something they don't look for. She doesn't, again, they all take off their shoes and she doesn't take off her boots. So it's like the same thing. Again, she knows he's gone. He's not coming back to chew her out about not wearing her shoes in the house. I mean, pretty telling, no?
It resonated with me. I mean, there's dozens of these bullet points. That again, it wasn't that my first inclination was Carrie's story about how she knew where he was lying dead. That was my first, but there's been dozens and dozens of other points that make absolutely no sense. Her narrative consistently changed. Her walking in this house with her shoes on, knowing that he wasn't coming home, was one of those scores of examples that just never added up. Makes no sense. And we are, I think you said we are stuck with the truth, and the Karen Reed narrative just perpetually changed over time whenever discovery became available, or she needed to explain something else away, or that was the misdirection and the distraction. No, look over here, something different, look over here. But yeah, the shoes in the home were definitely a resonating piece of that story.
What are some more little moments you had in court where your sort of jaw dropped, or you were like, I mean, do you remember any of those moments where I remember that so specifically when that came up in court. It made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
Yeah, I mean, amongst a lot of other things, her lack of reaction to the autopsy photos, I thought was notable. I had expected her to put on a show for that. She didn't even bother batting an eye at in fact, that she was, talking to her counsel and maybe even smirking at one point. That was bothersome to me. That's not normal behavior.
Yeah, you could say the whole way she went through the trial, the happiest murder defendant. I mean, it was like this was the highlight of her life, all the attention and power and control she was exerting over the courts.
I mean, how do they explain, even just things out of her own mouth, how do they explain her first court step statement of, we know who did it, Steve, you all know, to her Ted Daniels special Super Bowl edition, where she said, we don't know. So even on that basis, well, okay, so here's your boyfriend of 2 years, and we're going to find the real killers. It's complete bullshit. All of it. Just part of the plan.
I have had that up as my opening for I don't know how long, maybe a year, maybe longer, maybe less. And I've never gotten one comment from free Karen readers on that specific, any explanation for why she went from we know who did it to we don't know and it's not for us to know. We're not supposed to solve it. Turtle Boy went out with that narrative. They copied it. It's not for us to solve, even though that we've gone from one killer to the next. I mean, the first trial, Higgins wasn't even part of this.
Right.
So the second trial, now he's, public enemy number one. And no one raises an eyebrow. Like, what happened to Jen McCabe? What did she say? She's a quarterback, or I don't know. I don't watch football. Some kind of some kind of football play. I didn't even know football analogy in this. How did they think Jen McCabe was part of the cover up? You know what I was thinking was so brilliant about making this as kind of a blue wall of silence tale is that it really is a re-victimization of John O'Keefe, because if it's the blue wall of silence, then he's kind of part of that, going over there to his police buddies. So it's a real stirring up real hatred towards the police.
It definitely fit the narrative they were trying to create.
Yeah.
We have said, mainly because of that, because of the tie to the police, that Johnny just died on the wrong lawn. If he had died 2 houses over, the result might have been very different.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
It was because law enforcement lived at that location, and that's what tied everything together. It was a random, non-police officer, non-firefighter's home in Canton that he died on. I think that it would have been much tougher to kind of spin this tale of the blue wall.
Yeah, and the other thing that innocence fraud narratives do so well is they exploit human weaknesses. Like, we all have weaknesses and human frailties, and what they do is they exploit and troubles in life, and they exploit them and capitalize on them in an effort to take your attention away from the killer and what they, in this case, Karen Reed and her personality. I mean, how many times they remarked on Brian Albert or Brian Higgins or Jen McCabe's shortcomings or frailties, or what they see as their shortcomings or frailties, and they never talk about or things they think are lies, like the butt dials, butt dials, and they don't talk about the way Karen Reed changed her story and lied and got caught in the lies. No one talks about that.
The facts don't change. Her story changed consistently over time. And I think really people forget this or don't acknowledge it. But in order for the defense's narrative to hold any weight, and again, they pointed their finger at different people the entire time. Then it was Jen, and then it was Brian Albert, then it was Colin Albert, and then moving on to Higgins. So that was a constantly moving target. But the bottom line is, even now looking back, that in order for any of what they're claiming to have happened, you're talking about dozens of people that were all part of a conspiracy, that had careers on the line, that had their families on the line, that all remained silent over time. I mean, they say the only way you can keep a secret is if only one person knows it, right? So this is the greatest conspiracy in the history of the United States law, that everybody involved in the cover-up remained silent, even under the scrutiny of a federal investigation. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. But you'd have to believe
Federal
that.
investigation. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You'd have to believe that to believe Alan Jackson's, fairy tale.
A federal investigation, and also they had that independent audit too, which also found nothing, which was ridiculous. Right. So it doesn't matter that they didn't. It's a belief, it's a belief, and people want to believe it. They want to. They're like I said last time, it's like a carrot in front of a donkey. They will be constantly being led forward. Oh, the feds are coming. This is coming next. Something's coming. Someone's going to be, at first, everyone's going to be arrested, and no arrest. Feds are coming, arrest, nothing. And then nothing happens. And they just keep thinking that something's going to happen, and they'll change the narrative. And then they'll go into DNA testing, and it'll keep going and going and going. And they can grift off this for years.
The other kind of take from that side, from that camp, was that anybody that supported the Karen Reed is guilty narrative has been brainwashed. People were brainwashed by the McCabes and the Alberts. I've said this before, but I didn't know the McCabes or the Alberts before this happened. I've gotten to know the McCabes a little bit. They're really wonderful people, objectively wonderful people. And at the end of the day, if there was a single iota of evidence that pointed at anybody else other than Karen Reed, I would be extremely vocal about that. There is not one single solitary piece of evidence. There's a lot of conjecture, tons of finger pointing. They've victimized these innocent people who did nothing but try to help out a friend that morning, and then extended that to their larger family as targets. Why? To get one guilty, privileged white woman off. That's what happened. It was Karen above all, and they did not care. It's scorched earth. Alan Jack, Karen's words, scorched earth. As long as Karen's off, it does not matter what lies in that wake.
Well, good point. I mean, I've been bringing up, wouldn't you think that Karen Reed, now that she has all this time, she's not defending herself. And wouldn't the ultimate way to clear your name is to find the real killers? And you look at her in that interview and he says, well, who did it? She goes, it's not for us to know. We're disinterested. But this was your boyfriend of 2 years. You don't want to find out who murdered him with all the money that you raised and could raise to find the I don't want to start another OJ Simpson hotline to find the real killers, like he did. But isn't it interesting that she's not out every day trying to find the real killers? Isn't it interesting that once she got off, that just it's just left not Karen Reed. That's the answer. Who did it? Not Karen Reed.
Yeah, it's not interesting to me. It's what I expected.
Of course, I know. I'm just saying. It's not interesting to me either. I've seen this 1,000 times. They move from one suspect to the next suspect, and you're not supposed to notice, and no one says anything. And they're sure the first suspects are right, then the second suspects are right. And no one says what happened to the first suspect.
Right.
It just goes on. So there's one thing that Karen Reed has ghosted out of her narrative totally, which is, and she fought really to keep this out of court, which is the last text messages she had with John O'Keefe that night for 1 hour and 10 minutes. She is going back and forth from the first about this Richie the plumber she has coming over at 7:24:11. She says, I'm having issues with my hot water. So had to text someone to take a look. And John writes back immediately at 7:25:35, you trying to piss me off. Why would Karen Reed texting a plumber piss John off?
Because John's dad is a plumber, and Johnny was a really pretty solid plumber himself. He had worked with his dad prior to becoming a cop. So why would you call a plumber when your boyfriend essentially has plumbing skills is what would have pissed him off. So again, hindsight is very clear, but she was clearly trying to annoy him with that.
Right. She says nothing. I mean, they're texting. I mean, we can go through these texts all day. Some of them are very interesting regarding the kids, but I just I'm just fascinated by this plumber that I put out an SOS on my podcast for Richie, the Mansfield plumber, to come forward if he heard from Karen Reed that night. I haven't heard a word. We've never seen texts from this plumber from Karen Reed to this plumber. I believe it was a fabrication to rile John up that night, to make him angry and to start a fight, and also to delay coming out for whatever reason. But they go back and forth. I mean, let's just take a look at some of these text messages. Hold on 1 second. Let me just pull them up. They go back and forth. So he goes, why now you're not coming? He goes, why now you're not coming? And she says, I'm waiting for the plumber. I actually think he's in the driveway. This is a little bit, I think she mentions it before. I've had it, and hold on 1 second. And it's not going out after. It's 8 a.m. on a Friday. It's 8 p.m. on a Friday, he's saying. and you have a plumber coming over at 8, knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck. And she said, I've always told you, I will not put either of you out of your way the way everyone else in your life does. So I'm too good of a person to have you fix my plumbing issues, even though I had you put in a chandelier 2 weeks before. I knew it wasn't working right when you were at the doctor's with Kaylee, and I knew neither of you could get here. And this guy, Richie, fixed it the last time, whatever it was. He was supposed to be here at 5. If it's not a quick fix, I'll tell him to forget it. If you need a new water heater, don't let him do it. He's here now. It's not quick. I'm not doing it. I just want to be sure nothing will go wrong when I'm not home. He's not a scammer. Half the quick stuff he doesn't even charge me for. He just puts the toilet seats on crooked. Status, still here. So she's making him wait. Now, after fighting all day, she's now making him wait for her. She said he's got to go to Home Depot and he'll be back mañana. And then he writes so, and then she writes woman signal, just trying to figure out if I need to be here. What do you think of all this?
I think there's like a kernel of truth in there somewhere. I think she had a plumber for smaller stuff that existed, because otherwise, she's referring to him, and Johnny would have said, who? Like, who? And the thing about the toilet seat being crooked, like, it's very specific. So that was something that I think must have come up before. So again, it's like the deviousness of having just a kernel of truth to work off of, to spin into what plumber works at 8 o'clock at night, unless there's like a major flood in the basement.
I know.
I mean, give me a break. Like, that's not true. And so to me, it's just a complete manipulation. Whether she was like, I don't think he cared if she came out that night, frankly. So her delaying her arrival, I don't know what that would have achieved. But I think earlier in the day, she reached out to Erin, Paul's wife, and asked if she wanted to have drinks. Like that same day, like that afternoon.
Right. And he's also worried that she's not going to come out, because he says to her, I'm relying on you for a ride home. So I think he was more concerned that he wouldn't be able to get a ride home. Wish he had gotten an Uber, he'd still be alive.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's more worried that he won't get a ride home, but she just knows right where to go. And we have finally Michael Camerano's second trial weekly. He says, John told Michael Camerano that he was upset about the plumber, about Karen Reed not calling a plumber. And Yannetti immediately realizes the issue, goes, well, meaning that he would have had someone to fix it? No, he would have fixed it, Yannetti. You know that. He knows what it's about. They fought to keep this out, and to keep out, this whole, it's interesting. I hope they bring it up in the civil trial, because it's such a good example of Karen Reed's manipulation. She knows right where to go to start a fight with him. Don't you think?
I do. And again, as time passes and you look back at the entirety of the situation, what I think a lot of people identified as like a jealousy, and her behavior was that of a jealous one. I've changed my mind on that. That this is always about control. This is controlling the situation. This is power and control, not jealousy.
Yeah, let's look at some of these text messages. So right early in the morning, she gets him to apologize for a fight they had. And once he apologizes, she doesn't let it go. She just keeps in on him, on how terrible he is. And he says, I don't know what you want me to say. I've apologized for it. And she says, and what's interesting is here she is. She's already started flirting with Brian Higgins. And seems like she might be opening up some relationship with him. but she keeps saying, you're not into this anymore. And he says, well, not into fighting. Yeah, all the time. You're right. We've been fighting constantly for months. I mean, well, how do you think that played in court, and what do you think the reality of it is?
When you saw the totality of the text chain, it does look pretty consistent. He is trying to get a little bit of space, and she is just hammering him and pestering him with text after text after text. How did it play in court? I think better with the first jury, even though the second jury heard her admit on camera all the things that she said. But again, based on the results from the first trial versus the second trial, I don't think they really hit home to maybe they weren't presented in the way that would have provided the clearest view of what was actually going on there. I mean, it took me a couple of years to figure out what was actually going on there. I was just still assuming that, there was a base of jealousy. And then the more I looked at everything and the more I listened, and that's where I kind of came to the conclusion that this is not a jealous woman. This is a manipulative woman that wants control of Johnny.
Right. She wants him on the back foot, in the submissive position. So what's a great way to get someone in the submissive position? Accuse them of something. It's a really street tactic. You did this, you did that. So again, it's to look over there. It's, again, don't look at my behavior. Look at it's your behavior. And Karen Reed never admits to any kind of mistakes, faults. She's perfect and everyone else is terrible. I mean, that's been sort of the theme that was created by the defense.
I will say that I have to assume that Johnny was a challenge for her in this area. Johnny would have been very hard to manipulate overall. So I mean, even if she's professional level, Johnny would have been a worthy competitor. He was a strong. He had strong footing when it came to that type of thing.
Yeah, but here right before the Christmas, let's get back to the Christmas. He's putting Karen's COVID excuse. I mean, and you had gone out with her to a game. They didn't wear masks, did they? To that game that you went to?
No.
Right. So she's so concerned with COVID that she can't have you over and your family over for Christmas Eve like you always did. So she's wanting to isolate John, specifically you, and to keep you from what was going on in that home. I mean, John had asked her to leave and she wouldn't leave. I mean, would this have been a thing that he would have talked to you about?
No. Post mortem, yes. After the relationship ended, I would have gotten full detail, but not while it was going on. Johnny was pretty private with that stuff, and then once something was actually over, then you'd get the full download. You
get the full story. But I mean, specifically, I think that she isolated you because you would have been the one of all the friends to say, if you had picked up on some of the dynamics that were going on in that relationship. I mean, I think he may have been good in the beginning, but by the end, I mean, you look at those text messages, she had total power and control over him to the point where she could keep his friends out of the home. She could she could call him a million times and text him and he could say, stop, stop, stop. And she wouldn't stop. He could try to kick her out of the home and she wouldn't leave. I mean, she was walking all over him. I mean, at the end and keeping total tight control over who he saw and what he did. Don't you think?
I mean, I give him a pass, frankly, in looking back at it, because if I put myself in his shoes, if for whatever reason she feels this strongly about this, he's like, Brendan will understand, whatever. It's better than taking shit from Karen about it. Like that from what you see in the text, like it wouldn't have ended. She wouldn't have let it go. Like, I don't want, if anybody else comes over here other than the immediate family, she's bringing her parents over that night. So I'm worried about my parents, and if you look at them, you could make a case that that makes sense. I'd be worried about their health too. They're older, but
She's not worried about their health, Brendan. Come on. She wants to keep you out. She knows that her parents aren't going to give her crap about her relationship.
I understand. I'm saying it's a story that that would pass muster if it wasn't like, it wasn't like her parents are in their 40s is my point. I know now, but at the time, I thought it was Erin. So now you look back at it and say, yeah, okay. But I try to put myself in Johnny's shoes and, okay, man, look, I get it. Not a big deal. We'll do it next year. That type of thing, not knowing there would never be a next year.
Yeah, but let's look at how this relationship started. It started over COVID. So it started in isolation. No, there wasn't a lot of interaction with John O'Keefe and Karen and her and John's friends just due to COVID. And Karen has turned that around on you. I mean, I've seen the comments about just our conversation is that you had seen him, but due to COVID, nobody saw anyone during COVID. But so it bloomed during a time when she could keep kind of power and control over him. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, horrible timing. So, I mean, you can chalk it up to, again, died on the wrong lawn, horrible timing for this relationship. I mean, again, we are talking about Johnny O'Keefe, who once lost 21 consecutive bets on college football, which is almost mathematically impossible to do. But he did everything aligned in the worst possible way to get us to this reality.
Do you mean that you think he had bad luck? I mean, was it just that 21 bets? I mean, that's incredible. But I mean, do you think that? Do you think he?
No.
Do you think? Do you think he had? It just things
in general.
Yeah.
No. But the 21 bets would be what I would bust his chops about, or whenever you keep a list in the back of your head when you're trying to, when you're busting each other's chops over the years and whatnot, these things, and you have 40 years of things to draw upon. The one he would always go to was when I was like 10, 11, 12. I got glasses, but played basketball. I had to wear goggles. I mean, very flattering for a chubby redhead kid to wear goggles. And God, would he hammer me on that? You got your goggles? So just little stuff like that. But this was I would say Johnny was a very lucky person overall. But in this particular scenario, if he got unlucky, it was 21 straight bets, or he winds up dating a girl during COVID who winds up being manipulative and exclusionary, and then proceeds to murder him and then victimize his family for 3+ years.
Yeah, I would say that he was. I covered the NXIVM trial from the courtroom and all the hearings, and the thing that is consistent with people who, and also the Larry Ray trial, that get into cults or get into bad situations, is that they're always vulnerable. It's always at a time of change. And here, Karen Read comes in at a time where he's lost his sister, and he's vulnerable to someone who is coercively controlling, or a DV relationship, is because he's mourning his sister. And he's also in this new role, which you can see some insecurity about that. He says, I'm not built for this. What was your view of him as a guardian, and what kind of relationship did you see him having with his niece and nephew?
Okay, so I'll disagree with you slightly on this one.
Okay.
So Chris had passed years before, so Johnny was not new to this when he reconnected with Karen. He'd been doing it for years, and I think the thing that made him vulnerable wasn't his trauma or a loss, that's there, but it's the thing that made him vulnerable was COVID. So he's a single guy raising 2 kids, and no one can go out anywhere. Going out and meeting people was his social circle. That was his release. So I honestly, I think if COVID had never happened, I don't think Karen ever happened. He was at a spot where, he threw out some messages to people that he had, known from years past, and he threw a lot of fishing lines out there, and he caught the wrong fish.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just always at a time of change. Something's different. Something's changed. What was he like as a parent, and what kind of relationship did he have with his niece and nephew?
I think one of the coolest things, and I guess it was released publicly, but people have seen it, was there are some solid videos that really exemplify. He was put in a spot to be the disciplinarian at that point as their guardian, which is an incredible challenge, converting from exclusively playing a role of fun uncle. So he was incredibly involved with their lives from the time they were born. He was really, really close with Kristen, and he was by her bedside when she got sick every day, and helping Steve out with the kids. And so Johnny was already in there. It wasn't like he swooped in, from across the country and took over. He was already very involved. It's just that his role had shifted, and now all of a sudden, I think there's another text message where he says to Karen that he's always forced to be the bad guy. And to me, the bad guy means disciplinarian. He's the one that has to say no. Karen had a number of instances where she made some grandiose, over the top gift, whether it was picking up the dinner in Aruba, or I think that text was based off of a really expensive cashmere sweater that she bought for Kaylee. That really rubbed him the wrong way, where he's just trying to figure out where the guardrails are on how to set some limits on the kids, knowing full well what they've been through, and how they're treated outside the house. And he is the lone human being that has to tell these two kids that have lost so much no on a regular basis, and try to get them, give them the upbringing that he thought they deserved, which he's the one providing structure. If everybody else, Karen most notably in the last 2 years, is doting on the kids and buying expensive things, it makes Johnny look like the bad guy, and that really bothered him. And that even ties around to smaller things, like that she tried to minimize what she had got Kaylee for breakfast that morning. These small, like these seemingly innocuous things, but it was just another example in the relationship where someone, in this case Karen, was giving them their children, giving these kids exactly what they want. And Johnny's trying to rein it in and make sure, and he did a really good job. The kids are incredibly well balanced considering what they've been through. But again, Johnny had to be the guy that said no or rein it in. And he was looking for some help from his partner at the time, and she wasn't doing that.
And you can tell how much trust they had between Kaylee and John. I mean, here she is putting her phone in his room before, right at the time that she has to charge it, even when he's not there. I mean, what trust? Not like, I would think maybe myself as a teenager, I can have a few more minutes with the phone because he's not here to, find out that I'm gonna, when I go to bed, I can go to bed with my phone and then sneak in. I mean, she's still obeying his rules even when he's not there. I mean, what trust? And then he's writing her too from the bar and letting her know where he is. And those text messages haven't been put in the public domain.
He loved those kids so much. I mean, think of it from Kaylee's perspective. That was her father figure from the time she was 6 to the time she was 15.
And I just I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Very developmental years. So they were unbelievably close. He loved them so much.
And you can see in her testimony that the testimony that came out, and I always felt it was a disadvantage to the prosecution. I understood why it was not, broadcast because because Kaylee was a minor. But what came out? Were you there in court when she testified?
I was in court for Patrick testifying, not for Kaylee. We had specific people that the kids wanted in there when they testified for support. So. And
you because you're closer with Patrick, right? You have a special relationship with Patrick.
I'm closer with Patrick. I think it's easier. To relate to at the time to a 12-year-old boy. Because I've been a 12-year-old boy, but yeah, he's amazing too. They're both amazing kids. They really are in their own way. Very distinct.
How so?
They're both like whip smart, like super smart. I mean, people always say, "Oh, their kids so smart." Now these kids are like legitimately, like very, very bright. And I think Kaylee's definitely a little bit more sensitive, and I think they've through going through this together. I think they're unbelievably close. That Kaylee is crucial for Patrick, and Patrick is crucial for Kaylee. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine my child having to go through that. I can't imagine that if that ever happened, God forbid, to us, that if she came out and wound up where Patrick and Kaylee are today, I would be unbelievably proud of what they're able to get through, because it's impressive. It's just they've just become impressive. I mean, Kaylee's not even a kid anymore. They're impressive people.
And you have a special tradition with Patrick. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we've tried. So every year since the murder, I've taken Patrick to opening day at Fenway. That was a tradition of Johnny's. Before that, that Johnny and a handful of his closest friends on the force, and I would join whenever I could. John Jackson would go. Again, there's John Jackson. People have questioned. John Jackson wasn't even friends with John O'Keefe. I can vouch that John Jackson was genuine friends with John O'Keefe from the time they met. The first day they met at Northeastern, for the record. But because that was Johnny's tradition, and Patrick loves baseball, that's actually probably why the connection with Patrick was just easier for me, because I can go to his games. He's a really good athlete. Kaylee is too, actually. But at the end of the day, I think it's just impressive where they've been able to get to, considering their reality.
And just circling back to, the breakfast, is that the real thing that they fought about that morning? I've heard that it was about her driving with the kids drunk. Is that true? Or
No, that I've not heard. I always took it as that it was simply as little as he was trying to set some limitations, and
Okay.
then Karen went outside those bounds. It could be as simple as a Dunkin' Donuts refresher that created that
Okay.
issue.
And how did she spin that in court? And her lawyers spin that to be Karen was just too nice to them, and John was the mean father, denying the nice things that Karen wanted to do for the kids. I mean,
I would ask anybody just to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So the reality is they've had one disciplinarian in their life for the past 9 years, and then here comes this girlfriend of 18 months, and she is just doting and overly generous, like over the top type of behavior. It's just got to be so frustrating if you're in that disciplinarian role and your partner is making your life more difficult because you're painting me to be even worse. Don't put me in a position where I'm the one that has to say no. That's true in any married couple with kids, dating couple with kids, anybody with kids. There's a give and take, and it's like good cop, bad cop. But you try to have an understanding with your partner that we're on the same page here, and yeah, we want to make sure they have everything they need, and yeah, if they earn it, they should get some extra stuff. But there may have been other reasons in that moment in time where now is not the right time to take them out to lunch or buy them something expensive. And I'm just trying to do the best I can here to raise these kids the best that I'm able to, and you're making it more difficult on me. That's the reality. But instead, oh no, she was so generous and so nice. What a nice person. So you're making things more difficult for your partner. So perspective matters.
right. And then it also got spun in the documentary. Let me just share this clip real quick. She says, that she wanted to go. Oh, wait, hold on one sec. She wanted to go be with John through the snowstorm that weekend because they always had fun, the four of them together. And we'll hit the text messages in a second. Hold on. Here we go.
They didn't want to be shut in here with the snow I'd rather be up there with John and the kids and doing something fun. And we always had fun on the weekends. And then
her father is Nostradamus somehow, tells her not to go out. He knows that somehow it's something bad's going to happen, tells her not to go out. And if she had to listen to him, that's another spin she puts on it. She had listened to her father, she would have. But then when you look at the text messages she's writing that day, she's writing, I'm paranoid that she writes at 3:04:24. I'm paranoid now that everything I do with them is problematic. So rather see you for a minute without kids around, or 5:06:45. I don't want to have this constant conflict of the dynamic of the four of us. Rather just meet you out for drinks when you figure out what your night looks like. And her text at 8:33:16. I think the four of us together is toxic, meaning the children make it toxic. Would like to limit it, she writes. Your thoughts?
It's another 180. It's another story change with a complete 180-degree flip. It went from we want to be with them during the blizzard and we always had a good time to this foursome is toxic. It's very similar to, we know who did it, Steve. We don't know who did it, and it's not for us to know. It's the story. It hasn't just shifted slightly left or right over time. She's done full turnarounds on things. This just being another example. Which is it, Karen?
I think she's publicly tried to say that she had a great relationship with the kid always. I think that stayed consistent. It just conflicts with the evidence in court, which they just didn't dispute, but they just kept trying to talk about all the gifts and things that she did for Kaylee and Patrick. And when Kaylee testified, they said, Yannetti, I think it was, who was cross-examining her in one trial, said, well, didn't she go to your games? She goes, no, that was John. That was my uncle. He was at the games. He was there day to day. Occasionally she would drop me off to get my nails done. She didn't like getting her nails done, but she would drop me off to get my nails done occasionally. But for the day to day, she made it clear it was her uncle that was there always for her, doing the real hard day to day parenting. And so I can understand why he would be angry that she would come in and sort of occasionally, I think, as a way to exert power and control, give, these over the top gifts. Also, she said that she would also go cold and give them the silent treatment. It was a real issue, her relationship with those kids. And then there's the messages with Brian Higgins where she goes silent and she says, oh, it's great you don't, essentially says it's great you don't have kids. Like she's relieved Brian Higgins doesn't have kids.
Yeah. The thing about the kids, the other piece that I think needs to be known was when the kids testified in the first trial, Yannetti, when he was finishing up or asking Patrick one question, he didn't even ask a question, I don't think. He just said, I'm so sorry you were made to come here today, making Lally look like he forced Patrick on the stand to have to go through this traumatic process. I can tell you with 100% certainty, Patrick wanted to be there. He wanted to help. He wanted to tell the truth. He wanted to be part of getting justice. In fact, he was a little bit upset about not being able to testify in the second trial because Hank didn't put Patrick on the stand. He only used Kaylee. But that narrative, again, there's so many false narratives where it's like, oh, the Commonwealth's going to force these children into this horrible situation. And they've been so traumatized already. Leave these kids alone. These kids wanted to do this. They wanted to. That gets lost.
Also, just to touch on the false narratives, Turtle Boy, Aidan Carney, spun your comments about Kaylee's sunglasses, which I think is a kind of juvenile anger that she showed wearing Karen's sunglasses on the stand, as that you forced her, or that her parents put her up to wearing the sunglasses on the stand, and that she was so manipulated, and how cruel the O'Keeffes are, and you are. I'm not sure who he was pointing the finger at, you or the O'Keeffes or both, that you would make Kaylee get on the stand wearing Karen's sunglasses as a way to troll her. You have some response for that?
I think that's hilarious. That's how they spun that.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, 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 not at all. No one had control. That was exclusively Kaylee, 100%. No one made her do it. No one asked her to do it. No, most people even know she was doing it. I think maybe they thought that nobody knew what the significance of the sunglasses was. That was a 16, 17-year-old girl that wanted to send a message.
Right. Right. And had they known, I think they probably would have said, take them off your head.
I agree. I agree.
It's not the most, I mean, I'm going to agree with Turtle Boy in some ways. It's not the most mature thing to do. And I don't think you can troll Karen Reed. She's not bothered by Proctor's text messages and all the other things she says. She's not easy. People have said, we'll talk about this just briefly, but, BB Fell, this new glamazon lawyer being brought in to the civil case. What do you know about her being brought in and why she was being brought in?
Very little. That was a decision that the legal team for the O'Keefes made and brought to the O'Keefes. But from all accounts, she's a phenomenal lawyer. From my perspective, I don't see any negative to having a strong female presence on that side of the aisle. I think that was probably missing from both the first two trials. Laura McLaughlin had parts, and the parts she did were phenomenal, but it was a largely the entire trial was, with the exception of Liz Little's baby giraffe routine. It was always male dominated trial both times. Leslie being the most brutal. But at this point, this is just I think it may actually boil down to the fact that they need additional help. Everyone wants to make a big deal out of the O'Keefes adding a third lawyer. But what about Karen adding a seventh lawyer? It could just be a workload issue, frankly. But they want to bring in someone that comes with a history of success and maybe sheds some a different perspective on coming in fresh to the case.
Right. And we don't see also in these innocence fraud campaigns, they also have all sorts of volunteers. They've also crowdsourced their defense where they get ideas from Karen Reed supporters. They have in a way that the Commonwealth never did. So, I mean, they have a big team behind them. Just circling back to, before we were talking and you said, I'm sorry if I get this wrong. Was this John O'Keefe was your sixth friend who died? Is that right? That you Fourth. I'm sorry.
Not that I grew up with.
I'm thinking of the lawyers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So from the couple days after my 21st birthday through Johnny's murder, I lost 4 people that I was close with, all unrelated to different things: motorcycle accident, cancer, heart attack, and murder. So you can look at that and say, geez, man, it's a lot of loss, which it definitely is. So it's all about perspective and rationalization. But to say that, I was lucky enough to know these people and be close with them for as long as it was possible. But I actually do think that the previous losses through, again, other than accidental or natural causes, there was no crime committed in any of those cases. This was the wrinkle to this loss. But I think it did kind of over time, like you get not conditioned, but you have experience with loss. You know how to go through the process. And, this one, I'm not going to rank them, but this one was really, really tough. Really, really tough. Still is.
I mean, John O'Keefe must have been, all these things have helped Karen Reed, just how good natured all of John O'Keefe's friends are, have really helped Karen Reed, because for the public, it's just not.
I think that's a reflection of a couple of things. But number one is that we were not restricted, but gently suggested that we stay quiet during the first trial. And so I think, again, this is a lot of folks' first foray into the criminal justice system in Massachusetts. I think that we had, frankly, blind faith in the process. We understood what the evidence was. We felt very confident that if objective people hear this information, there's no way that she's going to be found not guilty. We were wrong not once but twice on that, and the system the system did fail us. Whether it was Canoni the jury selection, the process itself, Morrissey. I mean, the Mass State Police and they just provided enough little strings to tug at to keep a narrative going, to point the finger, and we were stripped of any chance of justice. But
I know that. I know that I've taken up a lot of your time, and I thank you for it. I just have one last question. If the evidence pointed to anyone else in this case, would you be holding that person responsible?
100%. 100%. Every stitch of hard and circumstantial evidence, and you throw in the behavioral things and the, well, that's odd things that doesn't match up either. You put it all together. And from the moment I sat on that couch with Carrie Roberts, there's only one person that caused John O'Keefe's death. There's never been a single stitch of evidence of anything, circumstantial aside, just false narratives and claims and theories. That's all it was, theoretical. We still haven't seen the carpet that was going to be tested for DNA. Where's the carpet and everything they claimed? There's been nothing, not a single piece of evidence. Oh, and they'll point to all this other stuff. It's all about, it's like getting into a political conversation with people. The response is always, yeah, but what about this? Well, what about, it's always about the lack of something. We're saying, no, what about the 10-second window from the infotainment center that coincided with Johnny's phone that stopped moving forever? We've talked about the microscopic pieces of taillight in his sleeve. Oh, the answer, the Mass State Police planted those. The Mass State Police planted shards of red taillight. Microscopic
pieces of evidence that they can't see, right?
Like using like a cheese grater? Like, how does that, I don't understand how that works. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So,
we'll get back to some of those claims. Hopefully you'll come back on. We'll get back to some more of those claims next time. There's so much to talk about with this innocence fraud campaign and the evidence in this case. Brendan, Kane, thank you so much.
Thank you, Roberta.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim.